Hey guys, Jared Wihongi here from the beautiful Suwon Castle in South Korea. Yeah, so I have 22 years of experience as a law enforcement officer in the United States. 20 years of that has been working as a SWAT officer, and I've been contracted as a Army Special Forces Combatives instructor, and now I travel around the world teaching Combatives courses all throughout Asia here, throughout Europe, South America, North America, all over the place. So CQB, some of the fundamentals for me, from my experience, my viewpoint as a SWAT officer, there's a couple of things. One of them would be the fundamentals of shoot, move, communicate. Okay, so in other words, for CQB, you got to be very competent as a shooter first and foremost, to know how to operate your weapon systems and be competent with those weapon systems. The ability to move, and in CQB, there's specific types of movements that are important, but be able to move tactically and safely. And then the ability to communicate. CQB is all about teamwork, and if you can't communicate with the team, then you're not a team. So those are three of the fundamentals for me of CQB. Okay, yeah, so I've done a lot of work in both communities, the military community and as my professional background in the law enforcement community. And there are a lot of there's a big overlap. So you've got military CQB, law enforcement CQB, and in the middle there's a lot of overlap, right? But there are specific areas that are different. And some of the differences are based around rules of engagement, right? In a military environment, your rules of engagement may be different than the rules of engagement in a law enforcement environment. Law enforcement typically are more restricted based on working in a civilian environment, having to abide by policy and procedure organizationally, and legalities within a particular area also. So that's kind of what we're what we're kind of dealing with when we look at these things here in the differences between military and law enforcement CQB. And I think those are probably the main tactics-wise. I mean, equipment will dictate some of that. So I might have, for example, in a military environment, I might be using frag grenades, for example. Whereas the closest thing to that in a law enforcement environment would be NFDD, noise flash diversionary device, flashbangs that are utilized in a similar but different capacity. So equipment is also going to make a difference sometimes in CQB. I've participated in many operations. I couldn't count the number of operations, probably in the hundreds, as in the capacity of a SWAT officer. And training is everything. In a law enforcement, people always tell me, oh, that must be dangerous working in SWAT, and it kind of is, because your operations are always high hazard. We only respond to the higher hazard type of situations. But really, I always felt safer in SWAT operations than sometimes I did working on patrol. And the reason why is, in a SWAT operation, I'm very well equipped, I'm very well trained, and I'm working with a team of the most elite officers in my department. In patrol, sometimes in America, we're on our own sometimes, or we may be just two officers and in a volatile situation that escalates really quickly. And so we don't have all of the information and the training that we have going into the SWAT operation. But so I've been on, like I said, many CQB operations, mostly high hazard search warrants, also some barricaded gunmen in hostage situations. And the training that I was given, always, you kind of fall back under those types of environments. You always fall back to your training, and so the training has been essential in being able to prevail in those types of situations. So yeah, and specifically military combatives, there's always going to be a place for it, and there's many reasons why. Okay, first and foremost, when you're trained a soldier, a warrior, to be a warrior, they need to learn and be comfortable with physical, taking the fight to the enemy, to be comfortable in a physical altercation, I guess you could say. And one of the best ways to build that is through combatives. If you don't have combatives, then it's going to be hard to really build warriors, to build people that have that fighting spirit. So it's just the of building a warrior. Even though some of these soldiers may never use those particular skills, it's still something that's to be able to take the fight to the enemy and be able to just get in there and mix it up. That's some skills that are learned through combatives. But that's kind of one side. The other side is the actual the application. You know, there's always going to be a need for soldiers to learn how to defend themselves. One, it may be again a rare but still a realistic situation where you're clearing a house. Boom, you go into a room, someone tries to take your gun off of you, and now you've got a couple of people fighting you. These type of things, they're not just fantastic romantic ideas. They happen, and there's a lot of times we've seen in recent wars where soldiers have had to go to their combative skills. But there's also other situations where in today's modern battlefield where soldiers are required to use discretionary use of force, right? Use tactics that, it's not the old days where you just go in and kill everyone's the enemy, but now I actually have to go in and use discretion, go into a house and decide who's an enemy combatant, who isn't. And sometimes you have to take people into custody without actually killing them, right? Causing them, cause the minimal amount of injury as possible. And maybe because again they're not an enemy combatant, or it may be because they are someone that you need to take into custody alive for interrogation purposes. So you're not going to be able to do that without good combative skill. Go hands-on in a less lethal capacity without some good combative skill. So it's always going to be a necessity for the modern soldiers, modern warriors. So tomorrow we have our Milli터리 seminar that's scheduled. So one of the things that I do all throughout the world, and including here in South Korea, is teach the Filipino martial art of Milli터리, stick and knife based art. And then on Sunday we'll be doing a day of training that's going to focus a little bit more on my military police and self-defense combatives program, TRICOM, which is a little less I guess you could say traditional in its approach to the martial arts, but more of a modern approach to training people in some functional and retainable skills for self-defense. Yeah, and the big picture for me is this is a country I've been coming to for, I don't know, the last 8 years, I want to say maybe, and it's a country that I'll continue to come to because I want to help foster the growth of both of these arts that I mentioned. Milli터리, there's a lot of people in here in South Korea that are interested in the Filipino martial arts, and in my opinion, Milli터리, when taught correct, is one of the best Filipino martial arts that are out there. So my intent is to help promote and grow that art here, but also South Korea is a country full of soldiers and police officers, and you know this country is in a constant alert status with its friendly neighbors to the north, and so I think there's always going to be need for a program like my TRICOM program that is more specific for no matter what your mission is within the armed forces. The skills that I train in TRICOM are a huge asset. So that's another thing that I'd like to continue to bring to this country.